In the early morning in Lexington on April 19th, 1775, I, John Parker, the commander of the rebellious Minutemen, was sent out to fight the redcoats that were coming. We would stand our ground no matter what circumstances. I bellowed to the colonists, "Stand your ground, don't fire unless fired upon, but if they mean to have war, let it begin here." They came within feet of us. I complied weakly and told my men to go home, but to retain their arms. And then suddenly a shot rang out and all hell broke loose. Musket after musket shots were fired toward my men. We fired back, but not much. Seeing my men fall and scream out like that scared me, and I wasn't hoping for this. The British captain finally called his men to order, and it left 8 of my men dead and 9 wounded. This was not the answer to this at all.
I am General Prescott, and on June 15th, 1775, me and the American colonists heard that the British had planned to control the Charleston Peninsula between the Charles and Mystic rivers. We fortified Bunker Hill with the cover of night on June 16th, only to find out it was Breed's Hill we had fortified because our maps were off and they misidentified the hills. The fighting began as the day did. The British fired on our colonial fortifications and came up and charged at us. We were low on ammunition, so I told the colonists not to fire until they saw the whites of their eyes. The redcoats came at us with 3 waves of men. The first 2 were unsuccessful, but the last one had gotten through. We had no ammunition left, so we fled back to the peninsula because that was our only escape route.
I, the president of the Second Continental Congress, John Hancock, was as stressed as the other delegates. I was thinking of the independence and loyalty, creating tension between us. One side of the room wanted to split from the British side and begin their own country, while they had their chance, but the other side wanted to stay with the British because of their loyalty. Benjamin was very strong with his ways to persuade and convince them to split, but the other delegates had very good points. Things were beginning to shake up. On May 15th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress made a decision. We were going to split with Britain and create our own country. George Washington was picked to command the American army. We were going to have to make our own militia to fight the redcoats, make paper money, and we decided to make the Declaration of Independence. 2. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams would be the main ones to write it. General Howe arrived with about 35,000 men, but I, General Washington, had only 20,000 men. I could only depend on a couple thousand, and still that would not be enough to defeat the very well-known redcoats. We fortified New York City to the best of our abilities. Our men helplessly watched as the British men were being brought in boats across the river and had several small skirmishes with our troops. They made a base to gather the full forces right off the river, and I was watching from the top of Brooklyn Heights at the redcoats fighting my men. We were losing severely, so we retreated back down the hill. With morale low, defeat was imminent. My men had their heads hung very low, everyone thinking that the war is lost. Some of the men came to me, General Washington, for help, guidance, advice, so I could keep their spirits nice and jolly. But I honestly had nothing to give to these young and battered soldiers. I thought of Thomas Paine's book, American Crisis. I looked through it to make sure this was just the right thing to raise their morale. I had to get them in the fighting mood, or the ideas of independence and liberty would be gone. They got around me, and as I read the book with as much confidence as I could, as I went on reading, their faces became more hopeful and happy. As I closed the book, I knew we had a chance. We were ready to fight. I am Horatio Gates, General of the American forces that were stationed near Saratoga. It had been long weeks for my men. The British were trying to take control of the Hudson River, but if he did that, could be the key to beat us, and we could not let that happen. They were marching with drums rolling toward us, a pretty scary thing to see. General Burgoyne was pretty confident after all his victories down the Hudson. I was going to change that. I thought, and I got my men into full charge towards the Redcoats. It was a surprise to them, giving us the advantage to get good shots in. The British were losing very badly. Most of their commanders were killed by our men creating chaos in the fronts. They fought hard, but not hard enough. As the night came upon us, they retreated across the Hudson, and we won. We had won this battle. I am Baron Frederick Wilhelm von Steuben. I was called by the American Army to make their men more skilled and disciplined. When I made it to the training camp on February 23rd, 1778, we started the drills. At first, this would be easy and simple to train. I thought this would be easy and simple to train them. I spoke too soon. Some of them had no skills with bayonets, discipline, or even shooting. I worked them hard enough, apparently, for General Washington. The skills I gave them were considerably good. They should take out anybody that stands in their way. I, Daniel Morgan, was near South Carolina and Cowpens waiting for the Redcoats to cross the threshold. My men were on either sides of the hills that I picked to fight against Tarleton and the British. They approached that morning and attacked with their dragoons and were driven back by our marksmanship. The second time they tried to get through was pointless. They tried to flank us, but they failed. My men were also using their noggins in not only shooting the troops, but the officers as well, to create much more havoc in the front line. In the end, we drove the British back, capturing more than 800 of their soldiers. I am John Paul Jones, commander of the Bonhomme Richard. I was sent to attack British vessel Serapis and the smaller one Countess of Scarborough. I have fought these redcoats countless number of times and established a reputation for myself. The shimps weren't stupid though, and most likely learned a lot out of our strategy, taking some of our advantage. But my sailors were brave and ready to fight. We started to fight as soon as we crossed paths. Cannons were fired, breaking woods and things around us. The boat was beginning to fill with 6 to 8 feet of water, and as soon as they asked if I wanted to throw up the white flag, I yelled, "I have not begun to fight." After a few hours of fighting, we boarded Serapis. We watched from the deck as our ship sunk into the ocean floor. I was honored for that victory, but the honors go to my men. Lieutenant General de Rochambeau and I, George Washington, were getting ready for a battle with the infamous General Cornwallis and ending this war with the grand prize of independence. He had the city of Yorktown taken. After he had lost the Carolinas, his only chance against us would have been from Major General Clinton to sail from New York. Even if the soldiers did make it, the arrival of the French fleet of Admiral de Grasse supplied us with 14,000 men altogether. The massacre that would be brought on the British 6,000 men would be horrible. There would be a lot of deaths and injuries on both sides. We started with going toward the eastern side of Yorktown. Cornwallis was surviving in the city with his soldiers, waiting for an attack. But he made a mistake, leaving 4 redoubts close to Yorktown that dominated British positions. Later, our men stormed two redoubts taken by the British, but we took it. The battle continued for a month. Cornwallis surrendered. The army marched out of Yorktown, ending the war.